got Kid Cudi. Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson.
Greeting, ghouls and gals.
Alan Seiler.
Teach me to tap dance, Beverly Crusher.
And Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And thank you for the little special intro, Alan. That was, I was surprised.
Woohoo! I threw it together in like 2.5 minutes. I was like, it'd be cool.
Awesome. For a minute, I thought it was that Kid Cudi song.
Wouldn't that be? I should have thought of that.
All right. Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, I got a couple of things I wanted to combine. One of them, this is very interesting. On the 24th of October, 1991, we lost the great bird of the galaxy. That was when Gene Roddenberry passed away.
Okay.
And obviously the guy who created Star Trek, along with some others. I'm starting to more and more as time goes by. I think of Gene Roddenberry the way you think of Stan the Man Lee. Absolutely critical, but there are so many other players involved. And so, but he deserves all the credit he definitely gets. The reason I bring up a death, because I usually don't like to do deaths much anymore, is ironically 1 year later, in 1992, on October 22nd, Gene Roddenberry's ashes were sent into space on the shuttle Columbia.
Nice.
Yeah, per his wish. He actually wanted to be in space. And I think we had posted a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, should one be so inclined, there's places where you can actually get on ships with other famous people and have your ashes shot into space if you want to do something like that, if that's romantic to you, rather than like having your head cut off and frozen like Walt Disney. So
wow.
Popsicle head.
Veronica, if we have enough money to do that when I die, don't and give it to charity.
Right.
Okay, and another one on the 25th of October, 1968, the episode Plato's Stepchildren aired for the first time. Now, aside from being considered by many one of the worst episodes of Star Trek, there is something very interesting about it. You care to guess what was rather significant about the episode?
Yeah, Michael Dunn was in it.
Yeah, no, that's not it. I mean, okay, this is one of those you can do like 20 guesses, they're all wrong.
No, it was the make sure I get this right. It was the first scripted interracial kiss between a white man and an African American woman on network television.
That is correct. Although it was not the first interracial kiss.
It was not.
Yeah, but it was. You're right. It was the first scripted one on television. Again, in our current time, it seems silly, but it was a huge deal in the 60s. And I think I said just a couple of weeks ago, a guy I work with recently told me that he grew up in West Virginia. No offense against West Virginia. Shout out to West Virginia. But he said the people in his little town literally were thinking about burning down the television station if they aired it. So his local station did not air that episode.
Back when people weren't so easily offended.
Oh, God.
True. One other really weird thing about this episode, I found out for the first time, this is 12th episode of the third and final season. It was the last episode of the series with any original music at all. Now, you had about 14 or so episodes to go, but everything else 100% was canned. Of course, Star Trek had used a lot of canned music before that.
Right.
And one of the things I thought was fascinating about that, I was thinking about this. If you look at all the shows that those of us of a certain age remember, famous for their music, whether it's MASH or heck, Mary Tyler Moore, or just go down and down the list, I can't think of a single television show in history where you remember not just the theme song, but several songs from several episodes in that series, as well as you remember the theme song. And I think Star Trek still holds a record for that with the original series in terms of how many songs people remember. You know, the music. Everybody knows the battle scene with Spock and Kirk.
Right.
Everybody knows the thing called Spock's song. So I just think that's fascinating. And I guess one of the last original songs written for the original series was that Bitter Dregs that Leonard Nimoy sang.
Yeah, I don't know if I mean I can't say whether they're more memorable, whether the scoring is more memorable, or just because I watched it 1,000 times when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the last one, well, last two, in 1966 and 1967, on the 27th of October, 1966, the episode Miri premiered.
Okay.
Which is well, you know, it's a show some people love, some people hate. The significance of that is, in retrospect, Miri is the first episode to exemplify what Gene Roddenberry believed in was the theory of parallel planets. That planet, according to Roddenberry's own words, was really a duplicate of Earth, which is why they had Earth tricycles, and all the notes from the doctors left behind were in English. And of course, we know in reality that was a money-saving thing. And in one episode of the series, they even talked about Hodgkin's theories of parallel planets, which is why you see so many episodes on the same backlot.
No,
But this was the first episode with the so-called parallel Earth.
Right. Did I ever tell you guys I was, before my daughter was born, I was campaigning hard to name her Miri?
No.
I thought that was a cool name.
It is a great name.
My ex-wife shot that down, which turned out to be fortuitous because like the next year, that movie Zack and Miri Make a Porno came out, and I was like, oh, I would not want her to be saddled with that the rest of her life. Dodged a bullet there.
That's
She claims to like the name Miri better, but
yeah.
Oh, it's great. And the last thing, Veronica, 27th of October, 1967, Cat's Paw premiered on NBC.
Around Halloween time? What a strange coincidence.
Yes.
yeah, so strange.
Well, speaking of which, we're going to have a little Halloween special tonight. We thought we'd hold off a bit on our Lower Decks discussion. We're going to touch on it we'll probably have to before the end of the show in some capacity, but
yeah,
we're going to deep dive into it next week. Next week, we'll be talking about both the final 2 episodes of the 4th season of Lower Decks. But tonight, we're going to get spookier. We're going to talk about some of the Star Trek alumni who have appeared in horror movies over the years.
Or just Halloween movies, not necessarily horror.
True. That's true. Halloween themed movies, spooky movies. Keith, was this your idea originally?
Yeah, I think it was one of the things we had talked about because we were talking about, did we want to do yet another named scary episodes of the original series of the series? Right. And we figured we'd done that already. So then I think the thing was, I what happened, Charles, I posted to you guys, no matter what we did, I wanted to mention William Marshall. And then from that, you're like, well, hey, what about? And for those listening, like, I don't know if Wayne's with us yet or not, but like hey, Wayne, for like 5 minutes, we were texting back and forth, me and Alan and Charles. And I was like, will we have enough? And I literally don't know what I was thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's start with William Marshall. Famously appeared in Blacula.
Yes.
And as Blacula.
Yeah. And it's such a good, Blacula is a really interesting movie because thanks, Al. Oh, there it is. Look at it.
There you go.
Oh my gosh. There's a stake through his heart. He's feasting on a female's neck. It's great. And it's the thing about Blacula that I love is, first and foremost, it's a good movie. It's truly a good movie, but it was a movie of its day, which is the 70s. And those old enough may remember there was a whole thing that became a thing called blaxploitation movies. And those are basically movies where you had Black people primarily, well, not primarily men, everybody like Pam Grier and so forth, where the guys would like basically take it to the man, kill a bunch of white dudes, thumb their nose at the system, have sex with a lot of women, all this kind of stuff. And it was kind of the overreaction to Black people not being given hero roles in Hollywood for so long. And it kind of sort of went the other way. And they're often considered kind of cheesy, over the top. Blacula, by dint of the name, would make you think it's a goofy, cheesy blaxploitation movie. Unfortunately, back in the day, when anything that was Black, they threw Black in front of it. So you had superheroes like Black Racer, Black Panther, Black Manta, blah, blah, blah. So this guy was a former slave turned into a vampire by Dracula, and Dracula deemed him Blacula. Seriously.
Because Dracula's very creative.
Yes. But it's really a movie about a man who is trying to find redemption, who is trying to find dignity. It's a thing about a man who's Black, who's lived so long to see Black people evolve from slavery to some semblance of freedom, who is trying to tell Black people not to waste their lives. It is actually a tragedy. And what anchors it is absolutely William Marshall, who the fans on this show will remember as Dr. Daystrom from The Ultimate Computer. He's also, what was he on Pee Wee Herman King something?
Yeah, I don't remember his name, but yeah, he was on. I didn't know it at the time, but I probably saw him on Pee Wee Herman before I saw him on Star Trek because I was very young when Pee Wee Herman was on.
Yeah, but it's a very good movie. It's actually done seriously. It's got good acting, and I absolutely recommend it if you ever want to watch something like that from the 70s. And I just love it.
Yeah, it can't help but have good acting with William Marshall in it. Like, even without a budget. I mean,
that's right.
Right.
All right, who else has got one?
Me.
Okay,
Yay.
go you.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus. Who's in Hocus Pocus?
Okay.
Oh, now I'm blanking on his name.
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones. There we go.
Oh, okay.
I've got a bunch
and he
of
was also
Doug
in Hocus
Jones
Pocus
movies.
2.
He's what?
He was in Hocus Pocus 2 as well.
Yes. I've got a bunch of Doug Jones images from like his stuff, but I forgot to get that one.
That could have been the show.
Ain't that the
All
truth?
things Doug Jones has
If we
done.
if we do Jeffrey Combs and Doug Jones, full show right there.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also Shape of Water. I feel like that's a Halloween movie.
Go with Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know who wouldn't know what Hocus Pocus is, but it's Sanderson sisters, and they come back from the dead because a virgin lights the black candle, and they come back, and he's Doug Jones plays the dead ex-lover of two of the sisters supposedly, but it was actually only one of the sisters, and he didn't like the other one ever.
But he's in makeup. He's in heavy makeup.
Yeah, as always.
Yeah.
As always.
Yeah. He's great in that. He does the whole like his moves like a corpse, not even like a zombie. He moves like a corpse.
Really?
Yeah.
He's like very rigor mortis. You know.
He is one of the most genius movement artists. He is just, I mean, he will bring out a unique characteristic of whatever he is playing, and it's just amazing to watch him do it. Even the little touches that he gives Saru is just brilliant.
I agree. He gives Saru an actual grace the way he walks.
Oh yeah,
which is just amazing because he has cow hooves or hooves for feet.
Right.
Yeah. He's also was in Pan's Labyrinth.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Let me get back to that screen.
Veronica, I have never seen any version of Hocus Pocus.
Really?
Nope. Oh yeah, there. Oh my.
There we go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nice.
What a weird looking creature.
That's it's a really effective look though.
Yes.
Absolutely. And Veronica mentioned Shape of Water. That's a movie that I absolutely love.
It's amazing.
That's a great movie.
Yeah.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because basically Guillermo del Toro wanted to do a creature from the Black Lagoon movie, but Universal wouldn't let him. And so he's like, all right, F you guys, I'm going to make a better one.
Yeah. And win Best Picture.
Yeah.
Right. And he played another sort of fish monster kind of dude in Hellboy.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I forgot about Hellboy.
That's where I
Yeah.
first remember him from.
And the original Hellboy, the first Hellboy movie, they had David Hyde Pierce dub his voice. Because the studio, didn't want an unknown actor playing the part, even though he was doing all the work. But I think after that, they let him hit the voice himself, which doesn't seem like it should be an accomplishment.
I know, right?
Okay, you can actually speak your own lines.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But that's true, though. A lot of monster actors don't do voices. I mean, or don't get the opportunity to do the voice. And they have another actor come in ADR and do it themselves.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing. And sometimes there's a limitation in the makeup or the costume design or whatever that prevents the actor in the creature to be properly mic'd or whatever. So sometimes it's a necessity, but not always the case in Doug Jones's work.
Yeah.
Doug
I just
Jones
love this guy, man.
Me too. And you know, he puts me in mind of another guy who became famous way beyond his expectations, was Andy Serkis.
Yeah.
Someone who also knows how to do motion and contortion kind of work. And I love the famous story there because Andy Serkis was hired for what was supposed to be 6 weeks work on one of the Lord of the Rings movies. And that was supposed to be his career. And the same thing, I've listened to interviews with Doug Jones, and he was like, I was this tall, gangly, kind of awkward looking guy. I never expected that this was going to happen. I mean, that guy, he's actually older than you think. I think he's like in his 60s. He looks really young. And he just can't not work. And people love him. It's just amazing. Nobody is more surprised than Doug Jones at his career.
Let me get some comments because some of these are kind of pertinent.
Cool.
Matt Sweatman says, at work we were watching the broadcast channel movies, and for October Frights they were showing The Devil's Reign by William Shatner. I have not heard of that one.
Oh, I've seen that one. Yes.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Oh yeah. If it's a bad horror movie before 1975, I've seen it.
Well, that's two different people, Wayne and Elaine, both point out that Dr. William Marshall is the king of cartoons.
That's it. Okay. Thank you.
And
What's up, Wayne?
Yep. Wayne also says his favorite is Gargoyles featuring Dr. Bernie Casey. That's where I got the Dr. Bernie Casey thing from. I was looking ahead. And we'll talk about that one in just a second. But he also says that The Shape of Water made his eyes sweat. Right on. So hang on. So Gargoyles, let me pull that image up real quick. If I can find
That's a good one. Another good choice, Wayne.
Yeah, dog.
Yes.
That's a crazy movie.
Yeah. And
I love it though.
The makeup work is fantastic.
It really is.
Yeah.
It still holds up to this day. Yeah. I don't know who remembers this. Again, I say a lot of stuff saying depending how old you are. When I was a kid, CBS, at least the local, I think it was national, CBS used to do a thing on Friday nights after the news called CBS Late Night. And they would do movies. And this was going on for years, like when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And they would do movie blocks. And they would always sometimes do horror movies like The Fall of the House of Usher and The Raven. I first saw Gargoyles when I was like 9 years old by myself because everybody in the house was asleep. And I was in the living room and I watched this thing in the dark. And it scared the crap out of me.
Nice.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, the reason Wayne mentions him is Bernie Casey played Cal Hudson, who was Benjamin Sisko's great friend in Deep Space Nine. And talking about blaxploitation, he also really first came to fame as playing a blaxploitation hero in some movies in the 60s where he basically ran around killing people and kind of loving women, which is what they did back in the day.
And if I remember rightly, Dr. Casey is also a very, very good friend of Avery Brooks, which is the connection that got him, into DS9.
That is correct.
So speaking of gargoyles, I got another gargoyle that I'm dying to talk about, and that is that fantastic animated series, which starred Marina Sirtis as Demona or something. Isn't that her name?
Yes, that's it, Demona.
Because there's two characters on the show with a very similar name, and Jonathan Frakes as David Xanatos. But it also had recurring or guest star roles from Brent Spiner, Avery Brooks, Dorney, of course, because he and Marina are best friends, Kate Mulgrew, Nichelle Nichols, Colm Meaney, and LeVar Burton.
Whoa, I didn't.
That I know of. There may be other ones that I didn't see, but I know those were in that show. That's just amazing. That was like the Star Trek dumping ground, but it's such a great show.
Yeah, I remember it being really good. I haven't seen this since it originally aired. It's on Disney Plus, I think. So I need to revisit it. But I mean, mostly I would watch this and annoy my sister by pointing out every voice that was from Star Trek. She did not care.
Yeah, it's really good.
Wayne also points out Dr. Bernie Casey as Hitman.
Okay.
That's the one I was thinking about. If you Hitman, if you watch certain channels such as FXM, it comes on like once a month. And if you just want to see people just going around killing people and then doing their sweet sweet love the rest of the time, that was blaxploitation movies.
What more could you want?
Yeah.
Oh,
But Alan, I think there's something very interesting about gargoyles. A lot of actors, especially back in the day, were not just chosen because they could quote unquote act, but they, like, one of the things about Doug Jones, there was a time when a lot of actors, they used to do stage combat work and they had to learn how to actually move. Voice work, especially for people, veterans like Kate Mulgrew and William Shatner stuff, voice work is important. So they weren't chosen or like, oh, we're just going to grab the Star Trek people. If you listen to those performances, they give phenomenal voice performances. And I mean, Jonathan Frakes, who is this kind of cool, good-looking, lovable dude from TNG, he's still cool. He's like the suavest bad guy ever in Gargoyles. And the voice just works.
Yeah, totally. Matt Sweatman says Gargoyles is like Thundercats in that it was a thought of cartoon that he's never seen.
Dude. Okay, Matt, go watch it, at least the first 2 seasons. Because they're phenomenal. Thundercats, it's not bad.
Hey, you should have been there, man. I was like 4 when that show started.
If nothing else, Gargoyle has the fun spot the Trek actor game. So,
that's true.
There's that extra level of enjoyment with it. But it was, it was like it predates it, but that Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, it's just so good. It has no bearing on anything except that Gargoyles was a great show, like the 90s X-Men show. It was just good.
Right.
Another thing
like
about Gargoyles,
like Lower Decks, an excellent animated show.
Exactly. And another thing about Gargoyles is there was a time, which seems weird now, where you remember Disney was almost they were literally at one point going to close their animation division for the television part, at least. And Gargoyles became part of this kind of long thing that was considered the Disney Renaissance, where Disney started producing good stuff again. On the movies, that would be things like The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. On television, it was things like, seriously, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, and some things like that. Those things on television brought Disney back. Gargoyles absolutely was one of the shows that brought Disney back. Another interesting thing about it is also it was not geared toward kids. There was like one episode where there was something like guns are bad, one of those now you know. But rather than that, it was an adult complex show with complex and long plots, which was very unusual.
Wayne says, Keith knows that I am not well versed in comics or cartoons. I'm sorry that I missed Gargoyles. Mel, you got plenty of opportunity to go and revisit it because it's an excellent show.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's on Disney Plus. So if you have Disney Plus, check it out.
Yeah. Wayne and Matt, leave now. Go watch. I mean,
no, don't leave yet. Keep watching us.
You can finish one by the time we're done, and you can come back and let us know what you thought.
We'll wait.
Yes.
All right. Well, the one that I was going to mention is older.
Of course.
It's the William Castle film, House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, I don't have that on my image. I'm sorry.
Among the cast was Elijah Cook Jr. And he's fantastic. And I think he like opens the film where it's just his head floating in black. And I mean, he's fantastic. You see him a lot popping up in old movies.
Yes.
But House on Haunted Hill so William Castle made that film, so it's very much in the William Castle vein, but it featured Vincent Price. And I mean, it's a classic thing where these folks are, if they can survive in the house overnight, they're going to win some money, and spooky things happen.
Yeah,
but it's a really fun movie, and he's fantastic in it.
Yeah, and it's a great film. I love it. I haven't seen it in a long time though. I really need to revisit that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, per what you said, Charles, if you rewind to back in the day in the 60s, when Elijah Cook showed up as Samuel T. Cogley, attorney at law.
That's right.
For those watching, it was a big deal because they were like, hey, it's that dude from like a million B movies and horror movies back in the day. So I've seen so many movies with him from the 40s and the 50s and stuff. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he's a fantastical actor, and it's funny how many actors who have appeared in genre things, like in Gargoyles, it's the other way around, where they've been on Star Trek first and they were cast for Gargoyles.
Right.
But in a lot of cases, these folks are in these genre things first and then end up in Star Trek.
Right. Well, a lot of up and coming actors, make some quick dough doing some horror movies, and it's either soap operas or it's like really bad comedies, like sex comedies, or it's horror movies, and so it's kind of like a cutting your teeth kind of thing. I mean, I would just do horror movies.
But also, I mean, there's some similarities though. With you have to dealing with prosthetics or special effects or heightened language or
absolutely.
And going the other way, I mean, I'm surprised more shows don't. I mean, I guess they do, like sci-fi shows do, but like Gargoyles, it makes sense to lean on next gen alumni because, I mean, if you have to have them saying spells and incantations, like these folks can handle technobabble, like they're going to be fine. They've proven they can handle it.
Right.
You're right. You can see their training in stagecraft and melodramatic TV movies and stuff. And an example I think of that is the original series episode, The Enemy Within, where when William Shatner's been split, you remember he does an incredibly common stagecraft thing where he shows up on the transporter pad with his back to the camera, and then he does the dramatic turn. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff people used to get trained to do back in the day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I might do the reveal. All right, so who else has got one?
Well, let's talk about. Hang on, let me get back to where the hell did it go? My screen. Let's talk about Pet Sematary, because that's got a couple of really interesting. It was the first big role that Denise Crosby did after she left Star Trek, and her co-star in this scene right here is a gentleman called Brad Greenquist, who is a character actor and does bit things here and there, but he was in 4 different episodes of Star Trek. He was in 2 episodes of Enterprise, Dawn and Affliction, and those were seasons 2 and 4, I think. And he was also in Who Mourns for Morn in DS9, and in Voyager he was in Warlord, which was a great episode. And I know this guy because he was one of our early guests at the convention I used to run. At the time, it was called Timegate. And we got him because he had done a big role in Stargate. And I was excited to meet him because of his 4 different Star Trek roles. And it ended up being his first ever convention. And he was the nicest dude. He was so much fun. I love that guy. But Pet Sematary, man, is one of the modern classics. And both Denise and Brad are just fantastic in it. Elaine says, Will Wheaton in Stand By Me. Is that a horror movie?
No.
They do find a dead body.
They do. That's true.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this guy in this image here. And Wayne says Nimoy, Shatner, Takei, and I think a few others are in Twilight Zone alumni. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right. So speaking of Nimoy, how about where is it? Oh no, where is it? Did I not save it? Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in here.
I was gonna wait and see if you had Zombies of the Stratosphere.
No.
I was gonna be impressed. Like, wow.
I don't. Oh, there we are. I don't know why it didn't sort alphabetically. No, not that one. This one. Yes. That's a good movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love every version of this movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, it does the same sort of thing like Star Trek does, where it's playing on the paranoias and fears of the time.
Yes.
And things like communism and losing our individuality and things like that.
Right. And the original version of that film is exactly what that is. And this is the 1978 remake with Nimoy, of course. Nimoy, of course. You can edit that out of the podcast.
Or leave it.
Or leave it. That's fine too. But yeah, that whole like Red Scare thing in the 50s is where so many of those great B-movie, sci-fi classics come from.
Yeah,
that whole like you can't trust your your neighbor because you don't know if they're an alien or not. I mean, it's all back to you don't know if they're a communist spy or not. And it was this paranoid environment that these things came up in, and it's fascinating study.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are themes that carried through to like DS9, played heavily on that kind of stuff, especially during the Changeling arc.
Yeah, especially during
and then
absolutely.
like in the actual like in the 2000s, War on Terror time frame, and I was like, wow, DS9 was about this because that was very much a theme in culture again. Not communism that time, but just that people could be enemies.
Yeah. Elaine offers a clarification about her insertion of Stand By Me because it is Stephen King.
Stephen King. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's a connection.
All right, you can stay, Elaine.
Oh, Elaine, we love you. We would never kick you to the curb. All right, what else, y'all?
Well, I was going to mention the film Reanimator, starring Jeffrey Combs.
Get that one too. Okay,
who we all love.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Inspired by H.G. Lovecraft, but a modernized version of it. And I mean, Reanimator is a fun movie. I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but when we were talking about doing this topic, that was the first one I thought of was Jeffrey Combs in Reanimator because I mean, for one, it's Jeffrey Combs.
Sorry, that was a mistake.
Like, that wasn't Jeffrey Combs.
No, I was like, I don't think that's Jeffrey Combs. They had really good makeup on him if it is.
Have you guys seen Reanimator?
Yes.
Not in a very, very long time.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And what's very interesting about that is what you're saying, Charles, is Jeffrey Combs works so well in that movie. He has it's funny, he has a creepiness factor about him that always makes you think when you see him and stuff if he's like that in real life. I think Andrew Robinson is like that as well, but they're not. I've listened to recent interviews with both of them on a couple of. There's a podcast called The Shuttle Pod with the guys from Enterprise,
Connor Trinneer and Dominic Keating.
Yep.
Yeah, they've had them on there, and they're lovely men with also again incredibly distinguished and classic training. And you realize it's kind of like what we talked about with comedy. The stuff that looks so easy and you think anybody can do it, you realize how much energy it takes to do stuff like that and make it, not come off as stupid.
Right.
And he also, of course, on Star Trek, he's played, my God, you couldn't even list all the characters Jeffrey Combs has played on Star Trek.
Well, yeah.
Well, we can pull up IMDb and then we absolutely can.
I bet we could.
I bet we could.
Him and the actor who played Admiral Force, my gosh, they just go on and on on and on.
That's true.
Right.
All right, what you got, Keith?
Well, another one that I was going to mention, also talking about, let's keep in that vein of people who seem scary, is Andrew Robinson, who of course is most famous as Garrick in Deep Space Nine, everybody's favorite Taylor. Just a plain and simple Taylor.
If only we had a photo of him.
Hey, we do.
Oh, there it is. Is that Hellraiser?
It sure is.
Yeah, he started a movie Hellraiser that is, man, even today, it's a trip. It's all about a dude who gets involved in this weird demonic stuff. It's Clive Barker, I believe, who was all about weird alternate dimensions of pure evil, and it's a creepy movie. This guy descends into madness in ways that are just creepy. There's a scene I'll never forget, and the funny thing is I took my wife to see this when it premiered, still not having yet glommed onto the fact that she literally cannot handle anything scarier than the 1930s Universal monster movies. There's a scene where Andrew Robinson's character literally takes a knife and starts carving up a rat on the thing. And the thing is, he is so scary when he does it. He's one of those actors where you're like, I wonder if he's like this in real life. I mean, and for those old enough, my first exposure to him was not a horror movie, but he played the serial killer in the first Dirty Harry movie. Also incredibly scary. And just another incredibly good actor. He also did another horror movie. It was the second in the series called Pumpkinhead. He did Pumpkinhead too.
He most certainly did.
That's great.
I mean, any movie that's going to have the subtitle Blood Wings is okay in my book.
And guys like Wayne and Matt, you said some of these things you haven't seen, and some of these things, if you're younger than I am, you may not have seen them. I'm gonna say seriously, every movie we name, even when some of the ones Charles is gonna bring up, and I mean that Charles because they're funny, you need to watch them. I mean, they're just great B movies. They're sometimes so goofy. So
I mean, we certainly
Pumpkinhead,
think you need
Hellraiser.
to watch them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what's funny too is that a lot of these movies, I mean, they're not the top shelf movies, right? They're
No.
not the big A-list movies.
No.
But these are young actors who, like, we know their work. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, if you were watching these films, you wouldn't know who Andrew Robinson was in
Yeah.
1984 or whatever.
Mm.
But now, like, being able to go back and watch him as a younger actor with no makeup and anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic. And I mean, like, Andrew Robinson's not a guy who you think of as being like physically imposing,
No.
but
Yeah.
he can play intimidating very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I would say Charles said these weren't top shelf movies. That's funny because that's a literal thing. Because back in the day when we used to go to the store, Blockbuster, to rent movies, these were the movies that might be on the bottom of the shelf or in the
Yep.
back behind the famous horror movies. And these are the ones you would just go pick up because they were cheap and they were fun.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. If you bend over a little bit, you're going to find some interesting films when you go to
Mhm.
Blockbuster.
What was that,
Yeah.
Alan?
You know what I mean. You know what I mean. You're
That's
talking
the main
about a
thing I
whole
miss
different.
about Blockbuster is you can
Yeah.
find all kinds of awesome stuff.
You're talking about a whole different kind of store than I am. I'm talking about Blockbuster. Thank you very much, Veronica. What else you got?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, then, since we mentioned Hellraiser, I'm going to get on with the Dax angle.
Okay.
Hellraiser 3 featured
Oh my goodness.
Terry Farrell, who, of course, would become Jadzia Dax, and her successor, who played, that would be Nicole DeBoer, who played the other Dax. What's her name?
Esri?
Esri, thank
yeah.
you. I don't know why I just went blank. Esri Dax. She was in a really bizarre movie called Cube.
That was good.
Dude, I love
Yes.
that movie. It is
Is that
so
the first
weird.
one?
Yeah. It's
yeah.
it's a serious mind trip. It is
Mhm.
like it is
Yes.
twisted. And it's
Yes.
basically you're like locked into this thing and you have to decide how to get out. And it trips you up and it tricks you and it turns you on each other. And it is a great movie.
Yeah, I remember seeing that exactly one time, and I feel like it was a Sci-Fi Channel movie, or I was watching it on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
But it was super cool.
Yeah, it's really good. And Nicole also had a starring role in a series called Dead Zone,
Ah,
which
good
I
call.
really enjoyed.
Mhm.
It was fun
Yeah.
to see it because of Nicole being in it, but I was also a big fan of whatever that guy's name is. I'm not a big fan anymore, apparently. Because I knew him from first from Saturday Night Live when he was like a kid. He was on Saturday Night Live and he was in 16 Candles and some, just
Is it
great
Anthony
movies like
Michael
that.
Hall?
What's that?
Is it Anthony Michael Hall?
Anthony Michael Hall. Thank you.
Yeah.
He was in like SNL season 8
Was
or
it?
9 or something like that. And he was great. And then 16 Candles, just a phenomenal film. But then he grew up, his face filled out a little bit, and he did this movie about a guy who could basically like psychically commune with dead people. And oh my God, it was so good. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Kind of
the
a low
series-
budget series, but it was really excellent.
No,
It was a good series. It was a continuation of the movie starring Christopher Walken. That and the Dead Zone is written by Stephen King.
Yeah, but I think the series was done by Michael Pillar.
Yes.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
absolutely right. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. And maybe that explains why it's much better than you would expect for a series to be following a successful movie, because it's actually a good series. It really is.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was like on USA or something.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Wayne has 3 things he's pitching in here. 1, how about Sally Kellerman in, get this, Slither?
Yes, I've seen that.
He says, speaking of goofy movies, Keith, remember Star Crash featuring Christopher Plummer?
I sure do. One time only. That was enough.
Right. And he also says Cube was awesome.
Yes.
Heck
yes.
yeah, man. Now, Matt Sweatman says, I assume someone has Tony Todd as Candyman.
Yes.
Oh, Absolutely.
That was
Do
going to be the
we
next one I
ever.
mentioned.
There you go.
He has it pulled up. Just
Yeah,
waiting.
I pulled it up on my screen so I wouldn't forget about it.
Ooh.
He's fantastic.
Oh
Tony
my
Todd is
gosh.
fantastic in everything he does. But
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, he was great in those films.
Mm-hmm.
How many were there?
3 that I think.
Yeah,
I don't remember,
one
but
Candyman, a remake, Candyman, a sequel, and at
3.
least 3. Yeah,
There
one
was
from just a few
Farewell to
years
the
ago.
Flesh and Day of the Dead.
There you go.
Are
I'm
those from
looking at
back
the
then?
Wikipedia.
you said I had it on the screen. I guess I should have read the screen I pulled up.
I don't remember which one starred Sammy Davis Jr. though.
I don't either.
No, I'm kidding.
Me
You know, he
either.
had that song, The Candyman.
I do.
Oh.
The Candyman can. Tony
Yeah.
Todd will tell you all about it.
Yeah.
And Tony Todd, another guy whose very presence is imposing. Everything he does, he just brings it. You can't not
my
look at
gosh.
him, pay
Yeah.
attention to him. He's of course he was famous, of course, as Kern,
Mhm.
Worf's brother, who, in my opinion, got completely screwed in that storyline on DS9. That's a conversation for another day.
That's a good show topic. People who got screwed in Star Trek
Yes.
in a negative way.
Yeah. He also did, of course, a memorable role playing, interesting choice, but he played the grown-up Jake Sisko in the absolute famous Deep Space Nine episode, The Visitor.
Yeah.
Where...
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say he
Okay.
played several like roles in prosthetics, including Worf's brother, like you said. But it's funny. I think that he's most remembered for Star Trek for being in The Visitor.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I think so,
because
too.
he conveyed, frankly, a gentleness of acting that you would not have maybe perhaps expected given his other roles, especially if you've seen him as Candyman. But yeah, he just nailed it. He's a really, really good actor.
Yeah, and he's a big guy when he's got that voice. So it's great to see him in a role like older Jake Sisko, where he's playing the opposite. By the end, he's a frail old man, and like crying to his dad.
Yeah,
which is not something you. I mean, I'm not an expert on Tony Todd's like filmography, but I wouldn't expect that he gets cast as that a lot.
No.
You know, like usually they want him to be the tough guy and the alien and things like that, right? Or the Candyman, you know?
Yeah. He also starred in some of the Final Destination films. That's the one about those kind of young kids who somehow always avoid death, and then death basically keeps chasing them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they gotta die.
Yep.
And he was in the 1990 version of The Night of the Living Dead, which was that's not one you gotta look up.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just kind of fair.
Yeah.
Oh wow. All right. So who have we not covered yet?
I mean, this topic could go on forever. We're not going to try to get everybody.
I got one more.
I know. Okay, go ahead.
I got one more, and actually, I was going to post this in our group as I was actually going to post on scariest performances, even if it wasn't straight up horror. And Brad Dourif.
Oh.
Brad Dourif, for those who may not remember, was the psychopathic killer in 2 episodes of Voyager, Ensign Suitor, who was strangely a betazoid whose betazoid powers were blocked. He had no telepathic or empathic powers, but he was a sociopath. And the whole point of the show was he literally, when he's introduced on the show, he had murdered another crewman, and they said, "Why'd you do it?" He goes, "I didn't like the way he looked at me."
Yeah.
He was creepy, made creepier by the fact that as a betazoid, they have black eyes. So they put those super black contact lenses. And Brad Dourif is one of those guys who, like Andrew Robinson and Jeffrey Combs, he can play creepy just by looking at you. Just the way he stares, it's not over emoting, it's under emoting. And he's very scary as Ensign Suitor. But he starred in several of the Child's Play movies, the Chucky, Chucky movies. Also in Exorcist 3, Alien Resurrection, and a really old movie that was just on TCM last night that some may remember, starring Faye Dunaway, The Eyes of Laura Mars.
I don't remember.
He was also in that. Oh, Alan's got it. Yes,
there you go.
That's a movie about a New York photographer who becomes cyclically bonded to a serial killer who starts killing people she knows, and she sees the murders through the killer's eyes.
Okay.
Brad Dourif is in it. And one last thing, it's not a horror movie, but you might remember Brad Dourif in a great performance as Grimmer Wormtongue in the Lord of the Rings movies, the servant of Sauron.
Right. That's right.
Sargon.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sargon. Great, scary actor, great character actor.
Yeah, Brad Dourif just pops up all over the place. He's a fantastic character actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really good.
All right. I'm just going to hit some of the images that I downloaded and we haven't got to yet. So we just hit Alien Resurrection, which I thought we weren't going to get to, but Exorcist 3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who was in that.
That was I'm not sure who was in that.
It was Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs.
I feel like if I go through these and we don't know who was in it, we'll just guess Jeffrey Combs and we'll probably be right.
Yes.
But we know he wasn't in Forbidden Planet. I don't know who was. Hang on.
Forbidden Planet.
Yeah, the dude who played the
Space
Kelvin.
Station Casa.
Yes,
Kelvin
guy, the Kelvin guy.
Yeah, the guy who played Rojan.
Right. Not Darren Stevens. Warren Stevens.
That's it.
Darren. Stevens
right there on the poster. Yeah.
Oh, it is on the poster. You're right.
Yep. Okay. Lord of Illusions. That was, and that's another Clive Barker. That was Captain Archer himself.
Yes.
Huh?
Scott Bakula.
I have not seen that. It looks super interesting, but I've never seen it.
It's kind of another kind of, if you like, it's a very typical Clive Barker movie, and that's not an insult. If you like Clive Barker stuff, it's very good. Clive Barker stuff is creepy to me.
God, I love Clive Barker.
He's kind of like an inheritor of H.P. Lovecraft. He's all about like whole dimensions and universes of evil and madness and sadism and really weird stuff.
And I guess the only other image that I put on here that we haven't got to yet is Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Sonequa.
Yeah, that's what she was famous for
prior
to Star Trek.
Yeah. It was such an exciting thing when she got announced as leading a Star Trek show. I was so jazzed up about that.
Absolutely.
I knew she was going to be amazing.
Another we don't have a picture of, but I want Charles to mention really quick. And again, Matt, Elaine, if y'all haven't seen this, you just got to go look for it. Charles wants to talk about a movie about giant rabbits.
Oh yeah.
And we can save that for next year. We're talking because DeForest Kelly's in it.
Yes.
But no, we can hold that for next year because we're getting close to time, and I was going to see if we still wanted to touch on the Lower Decks episode before we.
Wow.
Let me burn through the last bit of comments then before we segue over to our actual Star Trek topic. Let's see. Wayne says, "Imperial spaceship, halt the flow of time. Sorry, had to get it out of the system." And that was Star Crash.
Yes.
Elaine says William Shatner was in the Halloween movies because they used his Halloween mask as
good call.
Oh
Elaine.
My God, that's so brilliant. I wish I had thought of that. I would
deep put that cut up. Elaine. Yeah, you win.
Somebody was Chucky.
Yeah, Brad Dourif.
Oh, okay. He says that this is Wayne. He says, "Don't forget Dune with Brad Dourif." Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, he was so good in that.
Yeah.
And Michael Phillips says Dourif was also in Wise Blood in 1979, a film by John Huston that was filmed in my hometown, Macon, Georgia. Look at that. That's super cool.
I want to throw in this. I promise this is super quick because people will attack us if we don't say. Of course, William Shatner was in 2 Twilight Zone episodes.
Yeah, I feel like everybody knows that.
Yeah, the classic Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, and another one that's much more subtle called Nick of Time, where he plays a guy who literally gets attached to this little stupid dime sword demon creature that's supposedly predicting his future, and another one that was
a really good one.
Yes. And another one that completely is probably no one's seen is a movie called Green Room, starring Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart plays the leader of a racist, skinhead, murderous group of people who some unfortunates come across. And let's just say there's a scene where Patrick Stewart sends in some dogs to tear people apart, literally. It is Patrick Stewart like you've never seen him. It's called Green Room.
Yeah, I think that was when he was trying to distance himself from Captain Picard.
That and Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both going in opposite directions.
All right. So do we want to talk about Lower Decks?
Yeah.
Do we want to go spoiler or do we want to give basic impressions and save that rest for next week? What do you want to do?
I think we should save all that stuff for next week when we have a full episode to talk about both of the whole 2-parter.
Okay.
So just general impressions, I guess.
Spoiler free.
Spoiler free, baby.
That's right.
So
The scene in the cave was Mariner's reveal of this is why I'm like this.
Holy cow! Holy cow!
Called The Inner Fight, which I thought was an interesting title. And a lot of their titles have like double meanings based on what's going on in the show. Yeah.
I have a lot to say about that scene next week.
Yeah.
I hope I don't forget.
Here.
Just watch them again.
I'm just gonna say I loved this episode. After I watched it this morning before I went to work, and my initial impression is I think it's my favorite Lower Decks episode.
Wow.
It was so damn good.
Yeah.
And all the things that we always say about Lower Decks, about what great character work it does and how much story it packs into 24 minutes and all these things, it did all that stuff this week to a new level.
Yeah.
And my God, I just want to find Terry Metalis at a Subway somewhere and just hug him.
Mike McMahon.
I mean, Mike McMahon.
Yes.
I'll hug Terry Metalis too. I love him.
Hug everybody.
Yeah, I'll hug anybody. But yeah, Mike McMahon, holy God, just amazing. But yeah, I loved this episode and I am so excited about next week.
What about you, Keith?
I agree with everything Alan said. I think it was Veronica and Alan also said last week is every single time you look at an episode of Lower Decks and somebody's acting weird or something, you're like, that doesn't make sense. It pays off. Because again, not with spoiling, but when Mariner was acting certain ways, I'm like, what the heck? They regressed. They paid off. And they had two complete storylines running. One thing I've complained about many times is it's a personal opinion. I've never kind of sort of liked the thing that Modern Track has gotten, what is an A story and a B story.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like it takes away when one of them is minor. The original series didn't have that many. Lower Decks, when they do A stories and B stories, they really feel like parallel stories. You don't feel like one of them is like given short shrift. And so they tell it's like they're going to two different places and they both work. And I just love the way they can do that. And
by Modern Trek, you mean everything since 1987, because every Trek has an A and a B and sometimes a C story.
Yes, that's true.
Modern Trek doesn't even do it that much. You're talking about the previous Modern
right.
Trek.
Yeah.
90s Trek.
I think we're post-modern Trek now. I don't know.
I lost. Third base.
Okay. Matt Sweatman says, someone needs to make a watch list of all these films.
Keith did.
We can do that. We can put it out on our socials.
We actually can.
Matt says, I agree with Alan. This show has become so much more than what it began. And it was pretty great in the beginning. Yep.
Yeah.
I have got so much to say about tonight's episode. I don't know if I can wait until next week and not explode. But so everybody tune in next week to hear me gush forth all the stuff that I have to say about this week's episode.
Charles, and then liked it.
Wayne also chimes in about a watch list, and he also says we're getting to the bottom of the two biggest mysteries of the season. Spoiler free, right? Yes,
that's right.
Spoiler free.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I was gonna say, I mean, I did like it. I like it every week. There are some things in it that I have mixed feelings about, particularly with the development of some of the twists and turns of the season. But I'll save that stuff for next week. But the striking thing to me about this week is that we decided like 3 weeks ago that we weren't going to talk about Lower Decks tonight. And then this morning, Alan sends me a message like, "Man, I wish you were talking about Lower Decks." And then later on, like an hour later, we have a little private group, and Keith was like, "Man, it's too bad we're not talking about Lower Decks." And I'm like, "Look,
I know
we made the rule."
Yes, I know. Wow.
But it's become a show that's hard not to talk about. Like you get excited about it.
Absolutely.
What did you think, Veronica?
I was not a fan of a section of the A story, but I really liked the B story.
Okay.
Interesting. Which one do you consider which?
That's what I was going to say. I don't know which one's
I had the same question.
Don't spoil that.
I considered the story that Mariner was in the A story.
Okay. I thought so.
Okay.
That
is great. We all had the same question.
All right. So next week, no general Trek topic. It's going to be just a Lower Decks evening, right? We're talking about, we both parts of the two-part, the last two episodes of the season. And then maybe doing some speculating as to where it's going next, because it might be a while before we get to the next season.
Yep.
But it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So for that, tune in next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We go out live on Facebook and YouTube, or you can tune in on YouTube after the fact, or on your favorite podcast platform. This goes as an audio podcast, if anyone remembers that.
While we're talking about next, I had a question I wasn't sure. I'm not aware of. I can't remember. Do voice actors in animation count as part of the SAG-AFTRA strike?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No,
So they can work then, right?
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. That's the best of my knowledge, but the writers couldn't. Am I still correct about that? And so
Yeah.
everything is
I
just
thought
sort
the
of.
writer's strike ended.
It did, but
Okay.
I said they couldn't, so everything
yes.
just
Right.
got delayed.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So anything that hadn't been written can only just now have started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see. But in the meantime, Alan, where can people find more of you?
Well, I have another podcast called Modern Musicology, and we are coming up on our 100th episode, and it's going to be a special one. We had our upcoming episodes kind of all planned out, and then the Beatles announced that they were going to release one final Beatles song. So that comes out 1 week from today, next Thursday. So that week's episode, we're going to just talk about the new Beatles song, and so I'm excited about that. I can't wait to hear it. And then I've got another show called Doctor Who A to Z. And right now we are like running full steam ahead toward the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. And so we are reviewing all of the past anniversary stories as we prepare for this year's 60th anniversary special episodes. So
Awesome.
tune into both of those. That would be appreciated.
And how about you, Keith?
You can find me on X and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups. And I also want to say, Charles, actually that uniform works on you.
Oh.
Yeah, it actually does work.
It's your color.
And how about us, Veronica?
FeltNerdy.com, which takes you to our Facebook page.
For now.
For now.
We're working on it. And where else?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. And we've got some special episodes coming out. We're doing a couple special episodes discussing the film and soundtrack Head for the 55th anniversary.
Yes.
We're all going to Mickey Dolenz is doing a record release party at Welk Street Records in Athens, Georgia, and we're going to be there, and we're going to get to briefly meet Mickey Dolenz. We'll give a report on that, as well as Mickey's new EP, Mickey Dolenz Sings REM.
Yeah.
Which is it's gonna be great. We're gonna have a great time. So we've got several fun episodes coming out of Monkeying Around. So tune into that.
So do you have any special guests on those Head episodes?
Nobody special, but Alan's gonna be on.
That's right. Talking about the film, which I had never seen before.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun episode. I know because I've heard it.
We've experienced it.
Right.
Right.
All right, Veronica. Do you have a closing for us this week?
Happy Halloween.
I'll take it.
Perfect.
Over the last couple of weeks, I'll take it.
And this one.
Oh, good.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next Thursday, 8:00. Season finale of Lower Decks.